Hi everybody, welcome to the third and final viewer feedback video where I talk about viewer responses to my supermarket US versus France video. I've gotten so much fantastic feedback. In fact, even since this video I'm getting ready to show you was filmed, that I almost wish I could take that and do yet another, but I think this is enough. I think we're at a place where we need to move on to another topic. Plus, I've put these out one every day. It's given me no time to actually build the course I'm building for my community and to do my next exploration of a small city in France. We've talked about the differences between quality of food in the US versus France. We've talked about the differences in flavor. And we've also talked about the similarities that I was under the mistaken assumption that most French people shopped like you see on television or in YouTube content creator videos where they're walking to the outdoor markets and they're buying everything fresh. And the reality is that many people do that, but many people also go to supermarkets because it's much less costly for them to do that. It's a reality everywhere, but the differences in quality are still there. So this time, I'm going to wrap up with more viewer comments. Also, tell my viewers that are watching from France something new, as well as viewers that are here in the United States and might not be aware. Our government and the FDA, USDA, whoever else is involved in marking our food, has changed the rules on us for packaging and warnings on packaging. And we need to be well aware that they've made those changes because they're subtle, but they're also really insidious. Let's just say that. So that'll be toward the end of this last video clip. So I invite you on the ride. Hope you're enjoying it. I'm loving the discussion this is generating. In fact, it's generating so much commentary and so much discussion that I'm having trouble keeping up. So if I haven't responded to you yet, I hope I will get there. So let's get started. Another reminder, do not forget to mention that from Dennis Guibert, don't forget to mention USA prices are labeled without taxes. So again, understand that the price you see in France is usually the price per kilo or for the thing, if it's an individually priced item. The price we see when we're looking at the labels is the price before sales tax is added. At Brian Barcroft 9167 says, you can of course buy giant fridges and freezers in France, but why would you? Also, you don't need to search around for €1 coin. You can ask for a token. Okay, we have a very large refrigerator here. Came with the house we bought. One thing about America as opposed to some places in other countries is when you buy a house, it's implied and it's in the contract that the appliances stay with the new owners, the new buyers. So the stove that was here came with the house. The refrigerator that was here is very large, a large American-sized refrigerator freezer, biggest one I've ever had, and it came with the house. We won't need a refrigerator freezer that size in France because I do love to cook, but I like to cook fresh. So we'll be going out to get products more often because we'll live in a place that's walkable and we can do that. At LNS 322 says, I'm really looking forward to trying locally grown strawberries and tomatoes when we get to France. Me too. I've homegrown my tomatoes for years because our tomatoes in stores don't taste like anything. At Ruflomeo's, I don't know how to pronounce it, at ROFLOMAOZ, on and on. More and more products taste like nothing in the big French supermarkets. Now I advise people to go to local markets for the vegetables or specialized in vegetables like Grand Fraise. For the meat, same. The local sources are above the supermarkets in quality and the prices are often the same because there are less intermediaries. That's one of the reasons that Aldi and another store we have called Trader Joe's are lower cost than a lot of places for certain things, Aldi especially, because they have fewer intermediaries. And we just went to a local farmer's market that I'm going to be talking about in a future video, our local farmer's market, and we bought a week's worth of produce for $27. A week's worth of produce. So that's less than we could get it at the store. And it tastes better and it will keep a little longer. And the produce, of course, is late autumn produce. So lots of root vegetables and later blooming things like small beets, very small winter beets, and turnips and greens and like shishito peppers and other peppers that are grown by local farmers. So it's a lot of that, but it's in season and it was cheaper than, like I said, we paid so much less for it. But I'll show you that haul when I show that video. At single 9ly says a statistic that I found fascinating is one of Type Ashton's YouTube videos. Type Ashton, if you look them up, is a person from the USA but living in the Black Forest of Germany. They're very big on statistics and US stuff, and this person is really big. I actually subscribe to the channel based on this. Is that only 14, as in a total number, not a percentage, only 14 beef producers in the USA fulfill all requirements to be able to export their beef to the EU. 14 total. And I'll bet they're all smaller pasture-raised beef operations. At Jean-Marc Bordeaux, hi Jean-Marc, says prices are getting more expensive, but not too much like the US. Clothes in supermarkets is a normal thing in Europe, even in the UK and other parts of Europe. Not all the same supermarchés will sell the same items, so you have to shop around. Markets in traditional sense are expensive now in France. Most families will be at the supermarket. I have noticed a trend in some of the outdoor markets, especially in more touristed areas, are upward because they're in more touristed areas. And so they can mark their prices up because the tourists will pay them. So I've seen that a lot. An acquaintance, Rich, who lives in Carcassonne, said that their outdoor market is pretty crazy because they're in a very tourist-led place. So their market vendors can make a little more off the tourists. But still, prices here in the US are pretty bad. However, in less touristed places, like when we were in Annecy, and they have a couple local markets, local farmers market type places. One is in the old city. Prices there are going to be higher. One is nearer out toward the suburbs where tourists don't tend to go, and it's much more reasonable prices. At Jean Mas 4197 says, you have many levels of quality of chicken and the matching price, of course. Some are famous for their quality and taste, but more expensive, of course, like the poulet de Bresse. Did I say that right? It is required by law in Europe that all meat origin be known and traceable. You can know where a cow was born and raised, same as for pork. That was put in place because of the mad cow disease, and is also the reason why Europe doesn't buy US meat, because nobody knows where those animals were born and raised. It's tough to trace. At Thierry F67 posted something I found very insightful, and thank you for catching that. They said, when did you record those USA groceries? I showed asparagus, and it was like $6 for a bunch of asparagus. Asparagus is a very seasonal veggie. In France, it's usually sold in a few weeks in spring, not all year. And you are right, and you caught that. I wanted to show that as well, and I meant to talk about it, but I guess I forgot, is that asparagus is well out of season here. Yes, fresh asparagus from local markets is usually in the spring and no other time. In grocery stores, you get it all year round because it's shipped in from factory farms and greenhouses from all over. But it's very unlikely to have been grown inside of North Carolina. I'd also mentioned that some people who had spoken from France, who live in certain places in France, said that they couldn't find pecans as a nut in France. And I was schooled by a lot of people that that is not true, that parts of southern France do grow pecans and have growing operations and are beginning to sell more and more. And I'm very glad to hear that because I love pecans. And I love walnuts. I know you have those in France. And I love cashews. I love nuts. I like them. So I was really happy about pecans because they're one of the nuts that I like to make recipes with. And I like to have in a salad. At Alma Mater 9566, that's a cute name. I like it. I got it once I read it. On the Global Food Security Index that compares 113 countries on food quality, accessibility, affordability, and safety, France ranks number 4 worldwide. Wow. Behind Finland, Ireland, and Norway. France also uses a lot less pesticides than most European countries. And France is the leading producer of agricultural goods in Europe. I said that. I said they're kind of the breadbasket of Europe. About 20% of all food produced in Europe comes from France. France ranks 5th worldwide in terms of exportation of agricultural goods and first in Europe in terms of surface area dedicated to agriculture. Almost 55% of France's territory is agricultural. That's amazing. That's awesome. According to a ranking by the Japanese Ministry for Agriculture, France is also the third most self-sufficient country worldwide. And this is important because as some other countries are starting to be a little more aggressive with other countries, let's say, and a little more demanding, or a little more, we're not going to sell our stuff to you unless you do this, or we're going to put these giant tariffs on you and stuff like that. Well, these countries are looking for other places to sell their stuff then. France, being a very self-sufficient country as considering food supply, is really an absolutely great thing to hear. In terms of obesity, according to official data from the World Health Organization, France ranks 159th with only 12.36% of its population being considered obese. The US ranks 16th with 45.58% of people being ranked as obese. We Americans have been made fat by the crap that we eat. And by the fact that we don't walk anywhere. We drive. We have to drive place to place to place to place, and then we sit on our couches and sit. The United States, and this is very, very based in nutritional health as well as other factors, heart disease related deaths in France is only 4.8%. It is 18.6% in the US. In France, only 3.7% of people have diabetes. It's 11.7% in the US, and that number's growing. Just so you know, a lot more people are being diagnosed with diabetes because, number one, a lot of people went undiagnosed for a while, but we're eating a lot of food that raises blood sugar levels and causes insulin resistance and causes diabetes. I myself was diagnosed about 12 years ago with type 2 diabetes. By changing my diet to a largely ketogenic diet and cutting out processed foods, I now have resolved that diabetes and no longer have it and no longer have to take medication for it. The US has the fourth highest number of new cancer diagnoses annually worldwide, having 362 cases per 100,000 people. In France, it's 213, which is below average in the EU. Life expectancy in France is 83.23 years. That's the 12th highest worldwide. It's 76.43 in the US, which is 57th worldwide. It's really strange that this industrialized, major, high-tech country the US is sucks so badly on so many health markers. And it's related to a lot, but it includes relation to nutrition and what's going in our bodies. And somebody did tell me, say you need to take into account that the median annual household income is about $83,000 in the US, while is about $25,000 in France. Somebody help me find that statistic. I know that wages are quite a bit lower in France, but I thought 25,000 was kind of the French minimum wage. But yes, the French do have significantly lower household incomes. They also go on to say, but in terms of quality, there is a difference. EU food is way more controlled. And they tell me my videos are refreshing. Thank you. I try to learn and I try to teach and I try to be funny and silly sometimes, and I try to just be me. I really want to learn from you guys when I don't get something right, so I'm so glad so many people have commented, and I hope you keep coming back. Another person reminds that meat and poultry can be cheaper in France than the US, as opposed to what I had thought, because, and you need to keep into account that they're sold by the kilo, where our stuff is sold by the pound. 1 kilo is 2.2 pounds. So if I have hamburger for $5.99 a pound, or $6 a pound, I need to multiply that by 2.2 to get the kilo amount. At Condor Flies said that, and ground beef is at least $5 per pound in the Washington, D.C. area. It is the same here, and they say it may be that in France for a whole kilo. I don't know about that. I have not checked French prices yet. But yes, it's really getting higher and higher and higher here because our beef farmers have been thrown over to give money to Argentina instead. Oh, the prices are going up. Another person at 77MYMI said, the brie shown at 9 minutes and 30 seconds is not brie. It says brie, it says French brie, but it is not brie. Brie is 3 or 4 times larger, which is why it is usually sold in portions. Yes. As we talked about with bread, things labeled French don't necessarily mean that's the French way of doing things or the French type of cheese. In fact, a lot of those cheeses that are marked brie, I thought I hated brie when I first tasted it because I tasted something like what I showed you. I thought I hated it. It tasted to me like what motor oil smells like. It was just repugnant. And then a friend of mine told me, no, no, that's not real brie. Real brie is the stuff that's usually cut into wedges and wrapped in something, and the one that looks like it's trying to escape the package is the tastiest usually, and because it's double cream and triple cream, and it's spreadable. It's much better. And so when I tried that, I thought, oh. When I tried brie that was actually imported from France, it was an eye opener, and I realized, oh wow, I do like it. I just don't like that fake motor oil taste and crap. At VTV6656 said, I didn't even check the video yet, but I don't even understand your question. Is there any doubt? And they're talking about which one is better, which supermarket is better. And yes, it's a silly question, but like I was, a lot of people over here in the US aren't really aware. So those of us who are doing the research and who are getting educated by you all can make them more aware. Or a lot of comments that are just like, yes, insanely expensive, or that repeated what others said about having pecans in France. At Mario Deckers said, I'm a Belgian, and you see all of these vids on the web about how shopping is getting expensive and all that. Looking at this video, oh my God, it's incredible. Low quality and so expensive. Yup, it is lower quality than it used to be and getting lower all the time and more expensive. I did have a couple people that said things that I found either funny or a little overly angry. When just for those of you who are videographers or who are YouTube video makers, you will occasionally get people who are either just very angry and spouting off in anger, or they don't really know how to communicate in the language that they're trying to communicate in, or they're just grumpy, or they're trolls. I feel like the people that comment on my videos, if it's something that's really just gross or ugly or weird, I immediately hide it. So they can scream into the void if they want to. You can always tell when someone is doing this overacting thing by the amount of exclamation points that they use. So to those who are really angry about what I was saying, I hope that it was just a misunderstanding, but otherwise, honey, go take some deep breaths and go sit in nature and breathe. It'll be okay. I had one person comment that, oh, I couldn't watch past 4 minutes because you kept touching things. And I'm like, a question for you all. Do people in France not touch the produce they're getting ready to buy? In the grocery store thing, I picked up an avocado. It was hard as a rock because it was not ripe. And I picked up a kiwi fruit, and it was hard as a rock, not soft and ripe. And it was shipped in from Italy. So it was shipped in unripe and left to ripen in the store, which means it will taste like nothing. So is that not a habit? From what I understood, people in French supermarkets, if something is priced by the kilo, have to weigh it themselves and put the label on before they go to the checkout. Is that not true? And if that is true, do you not touch it? I have a feeling that this person's just kind of germophobic and you know, every right to be, you do you. One of the things I did not know, and I have been educated about, and this thing to me was the most eye-opening thing that someone in France told me. And a couple people said it, but this one person at Ancaragon, Ancaragonn, said, sadly, these kinds of mega farms exist also in France, though there are not that many of them. I recall one in Oise, Oize, and one in Drôme. I don't know how that I sounded Dutch or something when I said that, with over 1 million chickens caged together. Agriculture in France doesn't use GMO, and there are only a few of these big farms, but factory-type agriculture, to a certain extent, is real in the country since the 50s. I won't bother you with the history of agriculture in contemporary France, but to summarize, there are a couple types of exploitations, big to very big ones tied to the food industry. They hold most of the lands, generally bad products, but cheap. You'll find that in the supermarkets. Same. And the small to medium exploitations, generally dependent on the food industry, but sometimes independent. Like you'll find organic farms, more traditional farms, products sold locally or in dedicated shelves in the supermarket or in specialty supermarkets. And we have some of that too. Even so, I would argue that even our worst products are better than those in the US, not because of the quality of the meat, wheat, nor anything other than the health regulations in the EU and French law. And they ended with, anyway, I hope you'll be happy in France and we welcome you with open arms and thank you. I have always wanted to live in France. I have always wanted to live like French people. I have always wanted to live in that more deliberate life that's not so full of consumerism and that's just more living, breathing. I've always wanted to have dinner parties that lasted at the table for 2 and 3 and 4 hours rather than everybody eat, it's potluck, now let's go play board games. Though I do love board games. For all those people who told me that there are factory farms also in France, just not as many, that was very surprising to me. I had no idea that you have some of those as well. I just want to, even if I did not mention you by your name in this video, I do want to tell all of you who were so informative to me, even those who argued with me and said, you're wrong, this is what's going on. Thank you. Because as an educator myself, I want to be educated as well. I don't want to come into a place uninformed and ignorant of what is the reality because I've seen videos and I've seen these other things and I've seen news reports and whatever that are misleading. And or movies that you think things are one way when really So I want to thank all of you for being so kind as to stop and take the time out of your day to comment on my videos. And I hope you keep commenting and keep coming back because I'm loving learning from you. Before I end, I want to tell you about something new I just discovered about labeling in this country. And this is for Americans or for French people coming over here or for anybody coming over here who has to shop. The US Food and Drug Administration has decided to make it more difficult to know whether or not processed foods on our shelves have GMOs. GMOs are genetically modified organisms. That means they take a plant and they change its DNA and they change it so the thing will grow faster, the thing will stay fresh longer, all of these different ways, grow bigger. The big corporate food companies were losing money because they were told they were made to label on the front of a package that their product contained genetically modified organisms or GMOs. So because the corporate food industry is so rich and they were losing money by their disclosures, so they lobbied our Congress to make a more subtle disclosure on your packages. Now, GMO doesn't have to be on the front of the package. Instead, they're allowed to put a tiny disclosure down below or right next to the ingredients list that says contains bioengineered food ingredients. That's what a GMO is, bioengineered food ingredients. It's the same thing. Not only are they allowed to do that, but they're even allowed, instead of doing any of that, to put a little tiny QR code on the package to say scan to see whether this has GMOs or not, or bioengineered food products or not. What consumer is going into a supermarket and scanning every QR code on every can of corn or whatever it is they're getting to check to make sure it doesn't have GMOs? Americans are still trusting that GMO will be on the product if it's in there. Not so. You got to look a little harder. My thing is just don't trust processed foods, and try to make sure as you can afford it, you get meat that's grown and that's grass-fed and pastured and not given GMO containing foods. Oh, that's another thing. The food companies don't have to disclose which ingredient is bioengineered in the food. There could be more than one. 4 of the top foods that are in that category of bioengineered food are corn, canola, soybeans, and sugar beets. All of these products are in a multitude of processed foods to change the color, to make canola oil, corn oil. All of these things have bioengineered food ingredients. If you don't want to eat something that is not meant to be ingested by your body because it's been genetically altered, that's something to think about and pay close attention that you're getting as close to the original product as you can. The more ingredients, the more likely you're eating trash. Not only do these genetically modified foods not only are they meant to grow faster or to grow bigger or to even change their taste or to stretch out more, they're modifying them to withstand the chemical pesticides that are sprayed on them in the field. And as you know, if you're eating something like a tomato or a pepper or an ear of corn that have been sprayed, there's no scrubbing that off. There's no scrubbing that off. The chemical's going to be in the product. And it's not just that you're getting it that one time, it's building up in your system every time you eat it. So it causes inflammation in your joints. It causes gut bacteria, bad, poor health. It causes all of these things. When I stopped eating these ultra processed foods and seed oils, my arthritis went away, my joint pain went away, the inflammation in my joints went away, and my gut health got better. For US people and for people coming to visit, check your foods and eat as close to the natural thing and organic thing as you can afford. Just my little warning label for you at the end of this. Again, thanks so much, and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time.